One Piece chapter 1115 reaction. First and foremost, Oda dropped those bombs on us, man. Like, after wanting to know the Void Century lore, actually getting the full details, or let me rephrase this, not the full details, but as full of a picture as Vegapunk can give. And to be clear, even Vegapunk says, you can judge whether or not I'm a reliable narrator because I don't have the full picture, but these details are damning. And based on Emu's response, oh, I definitely think that Vegapunk, even though he ain't got the full picture, Vegapunk is saying enough where everybody need to be on notice. Ooh, Emu did not look happy at all. The fact that there's a comparison put up where one of the people, I believe at Drum Island, is going, yeah, you know, that mountain up there is 230 meters high. He's talking about the sea having raised 200 meters. 200 meters. How many people had to have died? And that made me think. I was like, wait 1 second. If this were the real world, how many of us would be able to survive something like that? And I looked up like the size of a mountain, like according to what the UN, I believe, said was 300 meters. But even then, like, that is high as hell. And the fact that Doflamingo is telling us, like, yeah, like 5 meters, an additional 5 meters will be enough to sink the entire planet. You're talking about an extra 195 on top of that. My God, everyone is cooked. I like that Oda just told us that and said there was this big war that was going on. We knew that there was a war, but to get the details that we're getting and that the sea rising the way that it did was a man-made situation. Yeah, I see exactly where Oda's going with this, man. So let me back up. So we open up this chapter where we're in Wano. And you have Momonosuke, and he's like, yeah, you know, that sounds like Luffy, the way he's describing Joy Boy. And I like how, like, I'm in the last chapter, I'm like, you know, there are going to be people that got their ass whooped by Luffy, which Momonosuke technically did get his ass whooped by Luffy, even though it was more from, like, Luffy saying, like, hey, grow a set of balls. But he's like, that sounds a lot like Luffy. And he can't be the only one that's coming to that conclusion. We see fake Luffy. And he's like, yeah, like, no point in talking about Joy Boy. That guy was dead. And for a moment, right? You know, when he's saying, like, when one of the people's like, you know, you can't be stronger than our Captain Kid. And I'm seeing a big, beefy version of Kid. I'm like, when did Kid get this fat? Like, that was my first thought at first. And then I read beneath, I said, okay, so this is former. I was like, that makes sense. This is former fake Luffy. Because again, I was about to joke like high hell on Kid, but the next thing we get is Vegapunk discloses, like, hey, I've only read from a handful of Poneglyphs, but what I found was that there was this vast war, and that Joy Boy's enemy was the world government of the present day. And as soon as he says that, it adds a layer of, I don't want to say predictability, but it adds a layer of believability, because the people that are listening in the universe are like, hey, that kind of makes sense. Like, pirates bad, world government good. And I like how as soon as you hear that, like, for us as the readers, and that's where the dramatic irony comes in. For us as the readers, we know, hey, like, if the world government was behind this, and it was definitely some shady stuff going on. But for the people in the universe, they hear that and like, yeah, you know, they protect us from the bad pirates. So that makes a lot of sense. And as Luffy is duking it out in the background, Vegapunk continues his narration. He says that more accurately, this was a precursor to the world government that we know today. And it was an army that was put together by the 20 kingdoms known as the Alliance. So it's like, okay, the 20 kingdoms, those are 20 kings and queens that decided, like, hey, like, this is the new world. So now we're getting more meat added to the sandwich of the story. And so Vegapunk says, like, hey, you know, they might not have had to been able to do anything except for band together against how over the top Joy Boy's faction was. And we see in the background the people that were aligned with Joy Boy. But he says that since I don't know what started the war, which is like, okay, Nico Robin's probably gonna be the one that pieces together what caused the war to start. He says, because I don't know what started the war, I can't say for certain who is right or wrong. And that's basically him saying, I'll let you fill in the blanks. And that's also Oda giving us a social commentary, because to use, like, say, real world examples, right? War, the heroes and the villains, it's tricky because depending on what side you are, you know, one side could be viewed as a hero and one side could be viewed as a villain. One side could be viewed as an aggressor. One side could be viewed as, say, a protective force or someone in the right. So I do like that Oda is, you know, just saying like perception is reality. And so what he does is he takes it a step further and he says that Joy Boy's time period was very advanced. You would think, because it's 800 years ago in the past, 900 years ago in the past, 1,000 years ago in the past, you would think that from how long ago this was, which again, you know, 800 years, but you would think that because of how long ago it was, that technology would have progressed even further. And to use our own world as an example, as a 90s baby, like I remember cell phones where there were these big gaudy like building block type of things. Like if you had a cell phone, you were considered rich. Now everyone has a cell phone, and the cell phone ain't even just a cell phone anymore. It's a smartphone. It's a supercomputer in your pocket. And so just looking at that in terms of like how far technology has advanced and become so much in abundance, it's kind of the same thing here. You would think in the One Piece world that technology from back then would be ancient compared to now, but Vegapunk's like, look, I'm the smartest guy alive, right? Even I cannot recreate the type of weapons that they had from 900 years ago to 800 years ago. You can't even recreate those weapons with modern day science. And the people that hear that, like say Foxy, they're like, man, that's got to be cap right there. I don't believe this. But then Vegapunk says, and that's the problem. And he's letting us know it's about to get real. And as this is going on, you know, you have like Stussy and Edison, they're having a conversation. Kaku is doing what Kaku's doing. Do not trust that long-nosed fuck. But as they're having their conversation, and we see Jinbei running with Zoro, and Nami's giving the information like, hey, you got to hurry up. The ships are coming to the northeast. You know, we got a chance to get out here, but we need to hit the water safely and not get bombed to bits. So hurry your ass up. But as this is going on and you got Stussy saying like, I don't know what I'm going to live for anymore, we see just how much they still have a hard on for Bonnie, because one of the elders is going straight for Bonnie. Bonnie is kicking ass. He tries to eliminate her, but thankfully for Bonnie, her future form runs out of gas. Frankie's able to save her. And Vegapunk continues this narration. He says that the Void Century came to a close with the defeat of Joy Boy. And as that's going on, the very same elder that just tried to fight Bonnie and eliminate her, he's like, look, like, you're just talking way too much. And he unleashes a monster attack. And you can see exactly why they're afraid, because the narration continues. And Vegapunk says that it left permanent scars across the world itself. And at first my first reaction as soon as I got that line was, okay, so he's about to tell us that because of how the Grand Line is, etc., or you got all these crazy phenomenon where like Drum Island is super cold, but then Little Garden has like monster-sized creatures, Alabasta scorching hot, every island has its own climate, and etc. I'm like, okay, like this is gonna be because of that. And so I wasn't too far off. And so Vegapunk says that the world's made up of all these different islands. Sailing between them is different because you need the log poles in order to do that. And he says like there's a reason for this. And the people that are hearing this, they immediately go, well, of course, you know, everyone knows it's dangerous. And you see that like they're still in that cog that the world government has established where they just take the lore as they know it. They hadn't really questioned it. And so Vegapunk, that's his way of saying like, everyone, you know that the sea's dangerous, but there's more to it. There's an understanding about this world that you don't quite get. There was a cataclysm that happened during the Void Century. How things are now are not how they were hundreds of years ago. The world sank. We're currently living on just a piece, a single fragment of what was once a continent that existed long ago, which means everything that you're seeing is just a small fragment compared to how much larger the One Piece world used to be, which that's crazy. That makes like island busting attacks in One Piece. Like I don't power scale on this channel, but you have to upscale now. Like, in One Piece is one of those series I don't even want to comprehend trying to power scale, but it's like you have to upscale at this point. And so I do like that you get the reactions, like Sabo's like the dark look on his face, because even Sabo is like, wait a second, if the world was bigger and everything sunk to that degree, how high did the waters have to get? And so that's what Vegapunk is getting into now. He's like, the world 1,000 years ago, most of that world is now at the bottom of the sea. And he says that there are a number of continents that we don't know anything about. And as this is going on, Nojiko's like, okay, hey, can't do anything about it. Gonna go check on my tangerines. But Vegapunk continues and he says, I don't want you to think about this as, oh, okay, so it was a natural phenomenon, because it wasn't. Because if it was, then this would have been something that happened over an extended period of time. But that wasn't. The sea rose 200 meters. And when people hear that, that's where they're like, oh my God, what just happened here? But you do have some who they're laughing. They're like, there's no way. This guy's just lying. He's making this up. But you do have people that, again, they're starting to put the pieces together and they're going, wait a second. 200 meters is this high. Oh my God, we are cooked. And so when he says this, he says, hey, you know, if it was a natural disaster, it would be one thing, but this is man. And the fact that he's telling them that this is man-made, it is his way of saying, I want you to think about the lengths that the world government will go to in order to stay in control. He's basically saying in so many words, and again, this is speculation because he hasn't told the whole story, but he's basically saying they will go so far as to eliminate most of the world just to be able to maintain the illusion of power that they've had, which that's crazy. And I like how as he gives this information, one of the descendants, Vivi, is telling Morgan to shut the hell up because she's completely locked in, which means Vivi's going to have a role. And I like how Vegapunk just spells it out. And he says that when I detected the rise of the worldwide sea levels the other day, I had my answer. It was those ancient weapons that were created during that period that sank the world. And those weapons still exist today. And he's saying that the war that took place in the Void Century never stopped, which now makes Luffy being Joy Boy and the Drums of Liberation and Dragon having the Revolutionary Army. There's something coming. There's a war. There's a war coming. Like, you know, we've had many wars before, whether it be the war that took place at Marineford, the war against Kaido that took place on Wano. But Oda's setting the stage for something big, man. I feel like this can't be something that he glosses over. This one, for as long as he let Wano cook, I kind of feel like, and that's asking a lot, because One Piece, it's been running for a long time, but I feel like he's got to let this one cook. I feel like for as long as Wano was, that's got to be the bare minimum length for whatever war he's going into. Because, dude, this is some big shit. And ending off with Imu making those glare eyes of death, something's coming, man. And that's gonna be my chapter question, man. Because, like, I'm so, you can hear it in my voice, like, I'm excited, but I'm also very, very worried. Like, I'm fucking speechless. This doesn't happen often. Every so often you get into a chapter in a series where when you're very invested in it, there are just certain chapters that leave you dumbfounded because you don't know where this is going. but at the same time, you feel like you think you know, but you also know that the series can subvert your expectations. And I have the benefit, I get to binge watch, not binge watch, but binge read this. But for somebody that's reading week to week, that's got to be torture. And that's my chapter question. Like, how did you handle this reveal when you got to it? How did you handle this one reveal? How agonizing was the wait? Was there like a 2-week, 3-week break? I know One Piece goes on break from time to time. Or was this like check in next week? I really want to know that. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.